Marvel Zombies has arrived, but does it work? What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I've got my review of Marvel Zombies. I was able to watch all 4 episodes early, so these are going to be my honest, non-spoiler thoughts on the series. Before I get into this, though, hit that like button, comment down below your thoughts on Marvel Zombies after watching the episodes, and of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. I mean, quite a bit. So when it comes to Marvel Zombies, this is a project that's been announced for years. I want to say, and I could be off here, that after the first season of What If came out, it was announced that they were working on Marvel Zombies, and that was about 4 years ago. So this thing's been in development forever. At a certain point, I never even thought it was going to see the light of day, but here we are in September of 2025, and we've finally seen this show. I feel like it probably went through the ringer in terms of development. At one point in time, it was probably going to be like a full-length season of TV like What If, but what they ended up releasing was 4 episodes, each of them being around 30 minutes long. By the time the credits rolled, for the most part, they were under 30 minutes. So if you look at it as a whole, it's basically like an hour and a half long What If episode. Early on, it feels like, hey, this is just one of the lost files of What If that they recovered and were able to throw out on Disney+. Now, it has its pros and cons. I'll start with what I liked. I'll say this: if you're a fan of the What If style of animation, that's exactly what you're going to get out of this show. It can be a bit jarring at times, in my opinion, like the physical animation itself. It works. There are other times where I'm like, it feels a little stale because we've seen it so many times in MCU Disney Plus shows already. But for the most part, the animation style does its job. It has sort of a comic booky feel to it. Of course, it never reaches the heights of something like, say, a Spider-Verse film, but that is some of the best animation we've ever seen, so you gotta respect that. It's still solid. It gets the job done. In terms of the story itself, there were compelling moments, surely, and I think it's because of the character Kamala Khan that I really found this show to have some heart. She is the standout, and I hadn't really seen much of the marketing. In fact, when I saw the trailer, all I took away from it was, oh, this is TVMA. They just went hard on that. I'll get into that when I get to some of the cons. But in terms of pros, the praise I can give the show, Kamala Khan, great, compelling lead character here. She really ends up being the heart of the show. You also get to see character dynamics within the Marvel Cinematic Universe that are unexplored, and I think that's really something that works with the What If series. I've only seen the first 2 seasons, by the way. I never saw the 3rd season of What If, but what worked from what I've seen in that show are unexplored character dynamics that really aren't allowed to even happen on the big screen yet, just because characters aren't in the same movies, or it's just rights issues, you know what I'm saying? Well, here we actually get to see these character dynamics with characters like Miss Marvel, Kate Bishop, Riri Williams. You see some Shang-Chi in here, you know? Character like Valkyrie shows up. So there are these unconventional team-ups that we don't typically see or never see in the cinematic universe that we're seeing for the first time, and that actually work. Who would have ever thought we'd see Alexi, Red Guardian, having a heart-to-heart moment with Miss Marvel? It's something that doesn't seem like it would work, but it ends up working. And in fact, the voice acting performances are really top-notch here. I gotta shout out David Harbour. He brings his A-game in anything, whether it's Stranger Things as Hopper, Creature Commandos when he's voicing a character, or in the MCU, whether he's physically playing Red Guardian or voicing him, he brings it here. In fact, Yelena and Red Guardian, one of the best father-daughter duos in the MCU, and they explore some of that dynamic here as well. So there's lots of great character moments. You know, they're smaller in scale, away from sort of the over-the-top zombie action, and those are the big takeaways for me when it comes to Marvel Zombies. You also get Blade in this project. That's right, the first time we actually get to see Blade is in an animated Marvel Zombie show, not a movie. It has me thinking of the good old Deadpool and Wolverine quote.
There's only ever gonna be one Blade.
I don't know if we're going to get to see Mahershala play the character in live action ever. I pray we do, but I don't know if that's ever going to end up being the case or not. And while the show is only 4 episodes, it is cool that early on we get to explore different settings within this world. You're kind of just thrown into the middle of the action in the first episode. We'll talk about that in the cons, but there's this episode, the 2nd episode, I believe, where it's like full-on Mad Max Fury Road for the first 10 minutes. You have to watch it to see what I really mean by that, but you also get these huge battle sequences, and they don't hold back on the violence or gore. In fact, that's a pro and a con, right? Because it's very rare in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to see lots of R-rated gore and blood, and that's basically the selling point of Marvel Zombies, kind of transitioning into some more of my issues here, like middle ground stuff. It almost felt like they were really going in on the TVMA rating because the show they had wasn't really a hot commodity. So they were like, we gotta find a way to market this. Let's go all in on the fact that it's TVMA, or R-rated, if you will. And so what we end up getting are a lot of these over-the-top kills that feel like something pulled from like a Mortal Kombat game. Literally, there are so many moments where you just see a character turn to skeleton or get decapitated decapitated or chopped in half or impaled, and there's these huge splats of blood. There's like a slow-mo zoom in emphasizing the violence, like, look at us, we're going crazy here. But it is still an animation. That's not to take anything away from it, but it doesn't feel really earned. It's just like, oh, look at us, blood splattering everywhere, guts flying all around, people's bones going everywhere. And so it's gory, but it's like video game violence, if that makes sense. It's not really earned. It's kind of just like, oh, zombie fodder. So that was a bit of an issue for me, just because it did feel kind of gimmicky, where it's not really benefiting the story. It's almost done for shock value more than anything else. And I feel like whenever a show really emphasizes its rating and marketing, that's because they're worried about the final product. Echo did the same thing. It ended up having a TVMA rating. One of the tamest TVMA shows of all time, mind you. So that's kind of a red flag, and I was worried going in, and that kind of came true. Hey, they didn't really do much with the rating other than throw a bunch of violence at the screen for no real reason. And in terms of structure for this show, it does kind of just throw you in the middle of the action, almost like you're in an already established universe. So it can be jarring, honestly. If you go and watch the first episode, it's 25 or 30 minutes long, and you're just sitting there going, where are we? What's at stake here? There's no reason to really care. The second episode kind of course corrects that a little bit, and then by the third episode, that's when things start to feel more like a direct sequel to What If, like legitimately following up where we left off in a season of What If, but it doesn't really warrant its existence. In fact, the entire show is cool in concept. There are moments where I'm like, that's really awesome. I'd love to see these characters team up in live action. But that's the takeaway, is everything in this show, I'm like, oh, this is just kind of teasing something I would like to see in live action. So it's not a necessary watch by any means. There's nothing that's too compelling in the show where I'm like, you have to sit down, drop everything, and watch Marvel Zombies. And so I really do believe it's smart that they ended up dropping all the episodes at once, because if this were to be some week-to-week show, people would not tune in. There would be zero interest. So it makes total sense why they're dropping it all at once, because in totality, it's only like an hour and a half long, genuinely, maybe 2 hours tops. But just like I say with What If, it's not that necessary to watch. Unless you're a diehard fan of the MCU and you want to see some cool references, that's kind of how I feel about this. These 4 episodes do a good job of incorporating things, places from the MCU in unique ways, and it's almost like, hey, here's some fan service for you guys, and that's kind of it. You get to see cool settings explored in ways I didn't think, like the raft, for example, is featured in one of these episodes. That was neat. I was like, that's a cool concept. You get to see some new Asgard here, potentially. I don't want to say too much, but there's a lot of locations, iconic places, and characters from the MCU thrown into basically a zombie apocalypse. So on paper, sounds really cool, but it's sort of bare bones and doesn't do all that much to warrant its existence, like I hinted at. That being said, I will give the show credit for not holding back. I know I said the TVMA rating's kind of gimmicky. No character is safe. That means that beloved heroes might be biting the dust or turning into zombies. You gotta watch to find out, but they kind of did go for it at times. So while it's like, hey, we know this show's TVMA and that's really our only selling point, they did go for it, so I will give them that. And while I do have my issues with Marvel Zombies, the big positive takeaway is the dynamic between older characters in the MCU and younger. And it's something that I think they kind of planted the seeds for us to see in live action, right? So we get this one relationship between 2 characters that I was like, that's so cool. It's like Miss Marvel and someone else. I won't say who, just in case you haven't seen the marketing or don't want to get spoiled. But there's a line delivery where this older character, it's almost like a passing of the torch moment to Kamala Khan, and I was like, that's something I want to see in live action. And I think we might get that in Avengers Doomsday. Wishful thinking on my part, potentially, but that's what I want to see out of these projects. I want to see the passing of the torch or unexplored character relationships, and they give us that to a certain extent in Marvel Zombies, but it never hits home as emotionally hard as I would have hoped. After 4 episodes, the show does end on a semi-cliffhanger, semi-ambiguous note, so you can interpret the ending how you want. They could totally do a second season. I'm not sure if that'll be the case or not. I think it really depends on how well received the show is, but I don't think people are going to be clamoring for more of this, so we're just going to have to leave on the sort of question mark, if you will. But all in all, Marvel Zombies was a quick watch. It's pretty harmless stuff. It's under 2 hours in total. It gives us some sweet character moments between folks who are never really on screen together in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's some gory, bloody action and in-your-face violence. It doesn't hold back in that department, but at the same time, it does feel a bit gimmicky, and it's kind of like, hey, we don't have the best show here, so let's just go in on the violence, and that can be the shock value, that can carry the show, and that's not enough really to warrant the show's existence. It's essentially an extension of the What If TV show. This is like half a season of What If. if What If were just to be about the Marvel Zombies plotline, and that's what you get. So if that was your favorite stuff in season 1 of What If, you get more of that here for sure. Again, it's a cool concept, but does it really deserve its own little show with 4 episodes? I'm not sure. You guys be the judge of that in the comments down below. Marvel Zombies is out there, it exists, it's fine. Will I watch it again? Probably not. Will they do season 2? Who knows, but it's out there. And just like What If, I feel like it could just sort of disappear in my mind over the next months and years, frankly. But what do you guys think of Marvel Zombies? Let me know in the comments down below, and of course hit that like button, subscribe to that notification bell, and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.